Yeah. Even though I really liked this particular outing, it's still got its problems. I don't even have a clever segue, they just need to be addressed. First off, what the hell was I thinking with that god-awful hashtag in my critique of The Predator? Way too many characters. My hair is down, tear it down. Hashtag hair down, tear down, tweet that shit. Second of all, and first of all, that isn't a straight-up joke, the title. Now, I know this has become kind of a running theme with me, but unlike in The Visitor, The Encounter, and The Predator before it, the capture actually makes a degree of sense. It's really more about the specific word choice. Jake is captured by a Yeerk, and then the team captures Jake as a result. But I feel like maybe the captive would have worked a little bit better on both levels. Because Jake is definitely a captive of Biggles, and Biggles Jake is definitely a captive of the Animorphs. It's really just a matter of personal opinion. As much as I appreciate Jake testing out the cockroach morph ahead of time, and I really do, I can't even. I kinda have to side with Cassie after the fact. It would have been even smarter if Jake had had someone else around when he tried it out, especially just in light of how it ultimately played out. According to my notes, page 20 is the first time that Marco refers to Rachel as Xena Warrior Princess. Or Jake refers to Marco referring to Rachel as Xena Warrior Princess, but that can't be right, can it? I mean, I'm reading actual books, so Control F won't help, and believe me, I have tried, and I have other, like, super important stuff to do, so if I'm wrong, please let me know in the comments. Chapter 6 literally opens with Marco espousing his surprise at the team practicing a morph. I mean, of course, he then goes on to comment about how morphing into cockroaches would make a great book, which just makes me so angry that I did not work in the word Kafkaesque even once in the synopsis. Still, I'm pretty sure that's what K.A. was getting at. As the Animorphs are preparing for their cockroach recon, Tobias is complaining about his night vision and talks briefly about how cool owls are. Oh, foreshadowing, that's kind of cool. But then he laments the fact that they sometimes kill and eat falcons? And that's not really a problem, but seeing as how Tobias is a hawk, and he very often mentions that other birds of prey sometimes attack and eat hawks, it reads kinda like a Marco morphing into a bald eagle at the end of the Encounter type oversight. Okay, so as pleasing as it is to me that Governor presidential bid really helps to establish the timeline here, it's pretty clear that this book takes place in 1995, or possibly as early as 91, this revelation does a real disservice to the Animorphs' continued anonymity. I mean, the book was published in 1997, so it's reasonable to assume that the events therein took place before that. 1996 was an election year, so how many people made legitimate presidential bids during that year? Now, I know that this book not only takes place before the omnipresent internet that we know today, but was also written before it, so I get the whole fast and loose with the plot points thing. But these days, this kind of information can, and will, stay tuned, easily be used to narrow down the location of the Animorphs' resistance. I am totally baffled by Jake's last-minute rescue during the roach morph. I mean, he's running from footsteps, poison is raining down on him, and then Tobias just swoops in and scoops him up. I mean, he did make reference to a door, and I know I praised how the confusion sort of benefited the tone back in the synopsis, but the whole thing seems awfully convenient, doesn't it? I mean, what are the odds that Tobias was watching that exact door right when Jake squeezed under it? And for that matter, how the hell did Marco get out of that toilet? Just a note, after Jake schools Juan in gym class, Juan makes a comment about how Tom could have played college ball, which sort of maybe implies that Tom might be college-aged? Maybe? I mean, I guess he could have just meant, like, down the line, but these critiques tend to run way shorter than their associated synopses, so I had to bring it up, right? Now, maybe it's just me, but the first time that the gang is trying out their fly morphs, Jake describes the experience as gross but fun. And I mean, if that doesn't just perfectly describe sex, then I don't know what does, am I right? So next time you're getting down and dirty with your partner, just remember, this is how a fly feels all the time. You're welcome. Does it seem weird to anybody else that there's an open window in a hospital without a screen? I mean, I am by no means an expert on 1990s hospital protocol, or even modern hospital protocol, but I feel like of all places, a hospital should probably have screens on literally every window. I mean, I guess it's not really that big of a deal, what with no known human diseases ever having come from bugs. Malaria, diphtheria, West Nile virus, literally the Black Plague. Nah, it's probably fine. Speaking of Body Snatcher General, what was up with the whole hot tub thing? Its wires are detached, presumably because the travel-sized Kandrona doesn't run on electricity. That's fine. But then Jake is just magically able to hook it back up again? I mean, it's not impossible, and I know he was mostly just matching color to color, but it sure is lucky that all those wires were stripped because he didn't have any tools on him. It's not really that much of a complaint, but I know when I was his age, I didn't know jack diddly about wiring. Yeah, I'm just speaking out of envy, I guess. I once again have to point out that it's a pretty unbelievable coincidence that the one Yeerk in that boiling cesspool to land in Jake's ear was the one that was previously controlling his brother. Whatever. The whole escape from the hospital scene just seems... I accept that it happened, and even that it could have happened. But in light of everything that did happen, you know, a bunch of wild animals showing up in the first place, an elephant blasting new doors in the building, the fact that all seemed to be happening on the 3rd floor, I just find it really hard to believe that nothing comes from this. I know it's a controller-controlled hospital. I suppose I could just say controlled. But, you know, in italics. But there are surely at least a few regular human patients who think it's a little strange that there's a gorilla lumbering around. I mean, I could make the security cameras argument again, but seeing as how it was apparently a new hospital owned, run, and designed by the Yeerks... Wait. No, that doesn't make sense, because if they had the foresight to install security cameras, they would now know that the Animorphs are human. God damn it, the Yeerks are dumb! I hate it. So, once the team realized that Jake was controlled, it occurred to me. After the presumably many, many years that the Andalites have been at war with the Yeerks, have they developed any sort of procedure or maybe a device that can remove a Yeerk? I mean, it's fine if they haven't, but you'd think maybe after all this time they'd have something? I mean, maybe they have, and Axe just didn't mention it because he didn't have access to one. I am pleased to say that this book has answered at least one of my nagging questions. You may recall, way back when I was talking about the message, that I had a few questions regarding Axe's whole morph blending chicanery thing and how it worked. And yeah, let's talk about this. Axe acquires each of the kids to create his human morph. Now, did he acquire each of them and then somehow merge them? Or did he create a unique morph, like, as he was acquiring them? See? Well, while it's not explicitly stated in this book that the cocktail morph is created at the time of acquisition, Axe does feel the need to acquire Jake in order to make their little switcheroo work. Now, devil's advocate, I suppose it's possible that Axe just didn't think of it, what with Jake just being, you know, like right here. Or even that he maybe could morph into any one of them and he just doesn't know that that's how it works. But I'd say this is pretty strong evidence that he cobbled together his human morph at the time of acquisition, and he could not morph Marco or Cassie or Rachel without acquiring them a second time. But I gotta say, it sure is lucky that Jake's distinctive haircut is embedded right in his DNA because... no. Wait, no, it's still fucking stupid. Oh, and when he morphs Jake, he's not naked. I mean, I assume. I imagine they would have mentioned it if he was. Obviously, what happened is he morphed into the morphing suit that he usually wears in his other human morph. But how? I would think that, since he absorbed them the last time he morphed from human into Andalite, that the clothes would be tied to that morph. Obviously, I would be wrong, and that's fine. This is fiction. It's just not how I would have thought it worked. Then again, we already know that the whole idea that clothes can morph in the first place kind of bugs me, so... Can I just point out the beauty of the fact that this is a book intended for children, and yet a huge crux of the plot is centered around the idea of being trapped inside one's own mind for so long that you give up all hope and just wish it could end. And even in light of that, the fact that Tom wishes that he could kill himself, but literally can't, I mean, Jeebus. That actually reminds me of a pretty amusing anecdote. A friend of mine told me a few months ago that she was bringing her kids to go see Infinity War, so potential Avengers Infinity War spoilers ahead, I guess. And I told her when Thor throws the axe at Thanos to just take her kids and leave and tell them that the Avengers won. And she looked at me straight-faced, having not seen Katie and Katie talk about the film, and asked if I really thought that they couldn't handle it. And after thinking about it for a few seconds, I realized, you know what? It's not really a big deal to kids, because death is just an abstract concept that only happens in movies, or books, I guess. God damn it. If I ever have children, I'm going to destroy them. Related. Now that the Morphs have had the brilliant idea to detox Jake by imprisoning him for 3 days, you do kind of have to wonder why they haven't done the same thing to Tom, or, more importantly, why they most certainly will not do the same thing to Tom immediately following this book. I mean, don't get me wrong, There are tons of reasons why that's not a great idea. Doing so would reveal to Tom that they know about the Yeerks. Tom's roommate suddenly going missing would almost certainly raise flags amongst the Yeerks. Maybe. I mean, they're fucking stupid. Then they would probably go all out to recontrol Tom, and then if they succeeded, they would know that Jake et al. Know about the Yeerks, etc. But I'd still appreciate it if someone at least brought it up at some point. If only so that somebody else could point out exactly what I just did. I guess we'll see. Okay. I let this shit slide initially because he only got halfway through the Falcon morph, but back in The Visitor, Visser 3 explicitly states in reference to Rachel's house cat morph, a pity that the species is too small to serve as a host. So, it's pretty clear that creatures with sufficiently small skulls cannot accommodate a Yeerk, right? So when Biggles elects to morph an ant, I mean, I know he has control of a body that can morph, but he's still a separate biological entity. So, how did it not result in 252 being crushed to death, or exploding at the back of Jake's skull? I mean, this is a huge oversight. Like huge. Again, devil's advocate. It's possible Visser 3 just meant that cats were too small to be of any real use, despite their fierceness. And we all know that Yeerks are incredibly malleable. But the words serve as a host really make it seem like it's not even possible to control something so small. So, I won't say that this is wrong, but it definitely doesn't sit right with me. And, wait, so if an Animorph, or an Andalite, or any morph-capable creature as it is presented here, equal opportunity, you know, were to acquire a Yeerk, and then morph into that Yeerk, and then whittle their way into the brain of some other creature that's also capable of morphing, and then use that body to acquire another Yeerk, and morph into that Yeerk, and then that Yeerk were to infest another morph-capable creature, and then acquire another Yeerk, and morph into that Yeerk, and then, you know, body snatch another creature that could morph and acquire, and they did those things to another Yeerk, and then they infested another. Look, the point is, it raises a whole lot of questions. Questions that I will most certainly bring up many times before this whole nightmare is over. Giving credit where credit is due, I genuinely appreciate that the Animorphs anticipated Biggles' escape attempt and prepared accordingly. But when Cassie first shows up as an owl, she says something that makes no goddamn sense. Rachel only pretended to sleep. We wanted this Yeerk of yours to make his escape when we were most ready for him. I mean, it's great that they expected that he was going to try to escape in the dead of night, and that he was going to morph to do it, and that they should acquire morphs well-equipped to deal with darkness. But why was Rachel pretending to sleep part of the plan? I mean, if Biggles hadn't thought she was asleep, he might not have attempted to escape in the first place. It's great that they were prepared, but wouldn't it have been even better if he hadn't tried to escape at all? Oh, and remember how Biggles started morphing a tiger while his hands were still bound? Well, the book explains that he uses his half-formed tiger teeth to tear the rope, which is a perfectly adequate explanation. Until you remember that Marco and Rachel explicitly bound his hands behind his back not 10 pages ago. What the hell is up with Marco giving that little "did you get it out of your system" speech in full view of a wild pack of wolves? I mean, I guess the pachyderm looming not far off was probably discouraging to them, but it's still a pretty Nickelodeon gutsy move, especially considering if they decided to attack, there's little Marco could do before he got his throat ripped out. As particular as it may seem, there is a part of me that's just a little irritated with how predictable Biggles' death was. I get that Yeerks die after 3 days of Kandrona withdrawal, that's fine. But literally exactly 72 hours? Like, what if Temrash at character creation had rolled an 18 and popped that baby into Constitution? Shouldn't it take a little longer? Maybe a little shorter? The way it's written, it seems like right to the minute. I mean, it's a minor complaint, especially considering how interesting that sequence is overall, but what am I supposed to do? Not bring it up? When Biggles is doing the whole raisin in the sun thing, Jake describes the memory transference he experiences as like a computer transferring a document onto a floppy disk. What even is? Wait. If Yeerks are blind in their natural state, how did Jake see the inside of a Yeerk pool during the fugue? Was it just how Biggles imagined the inside of the pool to look? So I guess that's it. Anybody have extensive knowledge of 20-year-old hospital policy, or maybe the governor of your state made a bid for president in 1996? Or, again, does anyone have the weirdly specific knowledge to confirm that this book is not the first time that Marco compared Rachel to Xena Warrior Princess? Or, in lieu of weirdly specific knowledge, just time to fact check? Please leave it in the comments. Don't forget to like, subscribe, tell literally everyone that you know how awesome I am, and be your best self until I return to review Animorphs number 7, The Stranger. I'll see you then. That's not really accurate. You will see me then.